What if the dream you are about to give up on is only one more step away from changing your entire life? What if every rejection, every sleepless night, every tear you've hidden from the world wasn't proof that you should quit, but proof that you're being prepared for something greater? This is the story of a man who cleaned floors while carrying a dream no one believed in. A story that reminds us all: never judge where you are today as the final chapter of your life. Because sometimes the greatest breakthroughs arrive just after the hardest moments. His name was Daniel. At 38 years old, Daniel worked as a janitor in a small office building. Every morning before sunrise, he swept hallways. He emptied trash bins. He polished floors that hundreds of people walked across without ever noticing him. To everyone else, Daniel was just the cleaning guy. But inside him lived a dream he refused to let die. He wanted to become a writer. For 15 years, Daniel wrote stories after long shifts at work. When others slept, he sat at an old wooden table inside his tiny apartment. The paint on the walls was peeling. His coffee grew cold beside stacks of handwritten pages. His fingers ached. His eyes burned with exhaustion. Yet night after night, he wrote. Friends told him to be realistic. "You're too old. Writers don't make money. You should focus on paying bills." Even his own doubts whispered cruel things. Maybe they're right. Maybe this dream is embarrassing. Maybe I should quit. Then came rejection. One publisher said no, then another, then another. 10 rejections. 20. 30. Each letter felt like a hammer crushing his hope. Eventually, Daniel gathered all his manuscripts into a box. He placed it in the corner of his apartment. And for the first time in 15 years, he stopped writing. A few weeks later, while cleaning an executive office, Daniel noticed a framed quote hanging on the wall. It read, "The temptation to quit is greatest just before the breakthrough." He stared at those words. Something shifted inside him. He thought about all the years he'd invested, all the sacrifices, all the nights nobody saw. He realized something powerful. Failure had never actually defeated him. Rejection had never destroyed him. The only thing capable of ending his dream was his decision to stop. That evening, Daniel went home. He opened the dusty box. He took out the manuscripts, and he began again. He rewrote everything. He improved his craft. He studied. He learned from criticism instead of fearing it. He sent out another manuscript, then another. Months passed. One rainy afternoon, his phone rang. A publisher wanted to meet him. Daniel's hands trembled. He could barely breathe. After years of rejection, someone finally said yes. His first book was published. Then thousands of readers connected with his story. Letters poured in from people whose lives had been touched by his words. The janitor no one noticed had become an author who inspired countless people. Not because he was the smartest, not because he was the luckiest, but because he refused to surrender. Maybe your dream looks impossible right now. Maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you've been rejected more times than you can count. Maybe the people around you don't understand what you're fighting for. But hear this clearly. Your current situation is not your final destination. Being overlooked does not mean you're unworthy. Being delayed does not mean you're denied. Failure is not the opposite of success. Often, it is part of the path that leads you there. The strongest people aren't those who never fall. They are the ones who decide to rise one more time than life knocks them down. Your dream doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. One more attempt. One more lesson. One more day of believing when evidence tells you not to. Because your breakthrough may be closer than you think. Years later, Daniel returned to the same office building where he once worked. He walked through those familiar hallways. Only this time, he wasn't carrying a mop. He was invited there as a guest speaker. Standing before hundreds of employees, he said, "I used to think success belonged to people with perfect timing, perfect talent, and perfect opportunities. But I learned that extraordinary things happen when ordinary people refuse to give up on what matters most." The audience stood and applauded, not because he had become famous, but because everyone recognized a truth hidden within his story. We all have dreams waiting for one more courageous decision. So before you quit, before you convince yourself it's too late, ask yourself this question: what if your breakthrough is just one more step away? If this story spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder to keep going. And in the comments below, tell us, what dream are you refusing to give up on? Because your story isn't over, your struggles are not wasted, and the chapter you're living today may become the testimony that inspires someone else tomorrow. Never stop believing, never stop growing, and never give up on the life you were meant to create.